Okay, so today I'm going to show you on how we're going to work with a drop down button. Okay, so a drop down button that is going to display, in our case, it is going to display here. I want the drop down button to appear on top of the list view, then it is going to display the group names. Okay, so that whenever I'm going to change the value of the drop down button, okay, for example, I'm going to choose friends. For example, I'm going to go back first to our we have here our groups. Okay, so we have different values here. So we have family, friends, and so on, and each of our contacts belongs to different groups with the contact group value or field. Okay, so in our TBL groups, we have two columns, group ID and the group name. So in our drop down button, I want to display the group name, but I want the group ID to be returned by drop down button when the user is going to click on any of these items. Okay, so why is it that we are going to return the group ID? It is because the related fields, this is by the way our primary key. Okay, and it is used as the foreign key into our TBL contacts. Okay, so again, I want to display the drop down button below the my contacts text and just above our list view. Okay, so in this video I'm going to show you how are we going to display the drop down button, and in the next video I'm going to show you how are we going to work with our database. Okay, so that every time the drop down button is going to change the value, then the list here will also change. Okay, so first is we are going to go to our Dart file. Okay, so we are going to display here our drop down button just below my contacts and above our list view. Okay, so since it is going to extract its values from the database, so therefore we are going to use a future builder. Okay, so I'm just going to copy here the future builder. By the way, this is the future builder for the list view. So I'm going to use the same future builder so that we could display here also our drop down button. But take note here, we have get contacts. Why? Because this is for the contacts. But in our case, since we are going to display the groups, so I'm just going to have here get groups. Okay, and here later on we're going to change this one. Instead that we're going to return a contacts list view, we are going to return a groups drop down button. Okay, but first we are going to have our get groups. Okay, so we are not, by the way, we are not going to change anything here. Okay, the same except for the future and the return widget. Okay, so I'm going to have first the get groups. Okay, after I'm just going to put it below. Okay, after our get contacts. Okay, so again I'm just going to copy this one here. Okay, but I'm just going to call it group get groups. Okay, still contacts now. But first, before we could use this one, so I'm going to edit first our PHP file. Okay, so what are we going to do is we are going to create here a function that is going to get our groups. I guess I'm not going to use here a JSON because we are just going to get all the groups. Okay. So first, again, we're going to have our connection. Okay, then for our skill variable, we're going to have select asterisk from TBL groups, then order by group name. Okay, so then we are going to create our prepared statement. It's equal to prepare with the defined SQL statement. Okay. Then since we are not going to use any parameters, so therefore we're just going to go directly with the execute statement. Okay. Then after that we are going to define our return value, and it's equal to statement. Then we are going to fetch all. Then fetch a sock, so that we are going to have our we are going to pass an associative array. Then return echo. We're just going to have here a return, then JSON encode, then our return value. Okay, so hopefully nothing has been misspelled here. So we're going to have then for our case statement, then we are going to have our get groups. Okay. So I'm going to try. By the way, I have installed here my Postman. Okay, so we're just going to use here a get. Then we have no JSON, so I'm just going to leave it blank. Operation is get groups. Okay, send. Okay, so we have here now. So okay, so we have retrieve all groups ordered by group name. Okay, so as you can see here, we have the group ID and the group name. Okay, so I would suggest that instead that we are going to have a separate installation for the Postman, since we already have an extension for the Postman in VS Code, so just install it in your machines. Okay. So let's go back now to our Dart. Okay. So get groups. Then we are going to have no, we don't have any data. Okay, so therefore we're just going to have get groups. Then for the JSON, by the way, since we are always looking here for a JSON. Okay, so therefore now we could use an isSet, by the way, but as of now I'm not going to show that one yet. So what we're going to do here is I'm just going to have a blank value here. Okay, so anyway, we are not going to use JSON into our API. Okay, so we have query params, contacts, response, return, contacts. So I'm just going to have here groups. Okay, so that we are consistent. Okay. So this is now the future that is going to be called by our, where is it? So we have here. Okay. But then into our, when our app is going to start, so we are also going to call our groups. Okay, so no, there's no need. We're just going to have, okay, we're just going to wait for here. Get groups, then we're going to have, okay, so we have here. So I'm just going to have groups drop down button. Okay, so I'm going to create groups drop down button. Okay, so here. Okay, it is a widget. I'm just going to copy. No. Okay, we are going to return. Okay, so we are going to return here a drop down button. A drop down button of type int, because we are going to return here an integer. So take note, we have here items and unchanged. Okay, so these are the important parameters that we are going to take note. But also, we need to return here actually a value. Okay, so this value here is the one, or the value that is going to be returned. In our case, it would be our the ID of the group. So what we're going to do here is we're going to create a variable. I'm just going to create here a variable, expanded. Okay, I'm just going to submit here. I'm going to create an integer. I'm just going to call it selected group ID. Okay, I'm going to have here a default of 1. Okay, so why is it 1? It is because we are going to default it to 1. It is because in our database, the very first group that we have is actually 1. Okay, so by default, we're going to have family. No, it's going to be arranged. By the way, because later on we're going to add, actually we're going to add one here, which is all. Okay, we are going to select all, but as of now we're just going to have very contented with our, the first would be family. Okay, in the next video I'm going to show you on how are we going to display, the default display would be all, which is 0. As of now we're just going to have 1. Okay, so that's for our selected group ID. Okay, so in this case we're going to use the selected group ID. Error. No, not in the build. Okay, it should be into our class. Okay. Okay, save it now. So next is for our items. Okay, so what should be our items? So items are actually a list of drop down menu items. Okay, so we should generate a drop down menu item. So where are we going to generate our drop down menu item from? Our get groups. Okay, so we are going to have this one later on how are we going to extract, or how are we going to get the return groups into our into a list that we are going to have or initialized into our where? Okay, here. Okay, so we have the initialized here a list for our contacts. So we are going to create also here a list for our groups. Okay, we're just going to initialize it with 0 or an empty list. Okay, so next is we are going to have, we're going to define our items here. Okay, so that is going to the source. By the way, the source of the items here would be from the groups list. Groups list. I'm going to use here again our map. Okay, group, then here. Okay, so we are then going to return, by the way, since it is going to ask for a list. Okay, so take note, it is a list, so therefore we are going to convert this one into a list. Okay, then we are going to return a drop down menu item. Okay, again of type int. Okay, and with the child okay, but before the child, okay, so since we are going to have two values here, that we are going to return the value as the group ID and the display as the group name. Okay, so I'm going to have here a value. So take note, this is the value to be returned and the child is the one to be displayed. And in our child, so we're going to use here, by the way, our child needs, oops, we have an error, wait. No, we don't have the comma. Okay, so I'm going to have here group, then we are going to have the group ID. Okay, and in our child is we're going to have a widget, so therefore I'm just going to display, and particularly as you can see here, it says type widget, and usually it is for we are going to just display here a text. Okay, and the content of that would be the group name. Okay, and on chains, okay, so take note, so on chains, every time that it is going to change, or meaning the user selects a new value, so therefore it should change the one that is being displayed. Okay, so we have here, okay, on chain, so we're going to have the new value. I'm just going to call it new value. So therefore, if ever the new value is going, or the user changed, okay, the selection, the new value should be assigned to the current value here. Okay, so that the display then would be also updated. Okay, so we are going to have a set state. Then we are going to have our selected group ID is equal to new value. Take note, new value is an integer. Okay. Now, we have an error. Okay, int then nullable. Okay, so it is possible that this is null. So we are going to assure Dart that it is not nullable. It is not null. Okay, then semicolon. Save. Okay, I guess that's enough. Okay. Just like with our list, so we have here our at the start of this page, when this page is loaded, so we have changed the value here for our contacts list. Okay, we filled our contacts list with the contacts. So just like with our groups list, so we're going to have groups list is equal to await then get groups. Oh, okay. Save. Okay, let us try. Reload. Expected but get. Okay, where is that? Okay. Save, then reload. Okay, so we have here now our drop down button. Okay, click, then and so on. By the way, I want to display here the return value every time that I'm going to click on the button. So where is that? So we have here. So I just want to print. I'm going to print here the new value. Okay, so that we could see it here, the ID of the selected group. Okay, so save, then reload. Crash. Okay, so that's number 6. Then family 1, and so on. Friends, so you can see it there. Okay, so as you can see, it is displayed. The name of the groups are displayed here, but it returned the IDs. Okay. By the way, I want this one to occupy the full width of the screen. Okay, what is that? We have it here. Is expanded. Okay, so it is a Boolean variable. Is expanded contains horizontally fill its parent. Okay, the parent of this one is we have, I guess, in our build, the parent is, or the future builder, the parent is we have the column, okay, which actually occupies now our full width of our screen. So we're going to have is expanded is equal to true. Save and reload. Okay, so it now occupies the full width of our screen. Okay, so cross, you can see here our value. So on the next video, I'm going to show you on how are we going to change the display here every time that we are going to once the user is going to select an item here or a group here, it is going to display only all contacts that belongs to this group. Okay, so recap, what we did here is actually first let's go to our PHP. So we have the get groups. Okay, so we just retrieve all items from the TBL groups and return them all ordered by the name. Okay, so then in our here into our Dart. Okay, so what we did is we have added a future builder. Okay, I just copied the future builder from here. That is going to wait for the get groups to finish. Okay, get the content of all of the groups. Okay, then it is going to return a drop down button. Okay, so as we have defined our get groups, definition, save it here. So we call our contacts, then we have our get groups for operation and so on. It's just actually the usual. This is what we have discussed before. Okay, with the get contacts. So both are the same. Okay, then we have our groups drop down button. It is going to return a widget, particularly a drop down button. Okay, so what are the important parameters here? So we have first is we have the value. Why? Because this one here is the one that's going to be returned and to be processed later on. Okay, is expanded because we want to occupy the whole or the full width of our screen. Then the items are from the groups list. A groups list is a list actually that is going to contain the groups returned by the get groups method. Okay, this one here, and we have defined that into our what's that? Change dependencies. Okay, so we have it here. So drop down button, I'm just going to separate them. Okay, so then we have here our items. It is a list of drop down menu item. That is why we have here drop down menu item with the int. Why we are going to have our type as int? Because we used here, we are defined here as an integer also. Okay, so our drop down menu item is going to return two values or two parameters, the value and the child. The value is the one it's going to be the one or the value that is going to be returned by the drop down menu item, and subsequently it would be the value of the selected group ID. and this one here is the value that is the value that is going to be displayed. Okay, then by the way, we used here a map because map, it is an iterable, meaning it is going to iterate through all the contents of the groups list. For example, we have 10 items there, so it is going to return 10 drop down menu items, okay, based on the records found on the groups list. Okay, and since items is going to need a list, okay, so that's why we have converted the map, the returned values now in our map to a list. Okay, so that's why we have here to list, and the content of the list are, for example, we have 10, so the 10 drop down menu items. Okay, and every time it's going to be changed, okay, so we are going to, it is a callback function, so we are going to retrieve or manipulate the new value. The new value is actually the new value that has been selected by the user. Okay, and we used here a set state so that the new value then would be reflected into our UI. Okay, why? Because it is the selected group ID. If every time that is going to be changed, so it is going to trigger for the update onto our UI with our drop down menu. So the newly selected group name would then be displayed. Okay, contacts, later on we're going to go back with that. Okay, so those are the only things that we have changed. So what we have done so far is we have displayed only our drop down menu, drop down button. Okay, and on the next video we are going to change, every time that we're going to change, or the user is going to change the item or the selected item from the groups drop down button, the display on the list view would also change. Okay, so that's all for this video, and I'll see you on the next one.